What's good? The Toronto Raptors have officially been eliminated from the play-in contention, and the Chicago Bulls, in turn, lock themselves into the play-in for what feels like they might as well just be the play-in champions because they've been in the play-in every single year it's existed. And the Raptors would know that. They met this team. Prior to this game, I said I would pay anything for DeMar DeRozan to have DR DeRozan come to Chicago, presumably from Sacramento, and just scream at the Raptors all night. That would be great. This would be clutch. The Raptors have a very complicated situation right now. Chicago was the second best team that they're going to face for the rest of the season. So this is one of the quote unquote tougher games in this very easy stretch. The next game that they have that's against a good opponent is the Pistons. And by the way, it's the last game they have against a good opponent. And the NBA has decided to suspend a bunch of Pistons for tomorrow's game and then Friday's game. And I believe Isaiah Stewart, who's been suspended for 2 games, will miss Friday's game. And I don't know if Cade Cunningham is going to be back. So what that does mean is that the Toronto Raptors will go in and face a quote unquote good opponent without two of their best players. That's tough because you need this loss. I'll tell you why. The San Antonio Spurs, who are nipping at the heels of the Toronto Raptors, just get this tank talk out of the way. And we can talk about Jacoby Walter. We can talk about Scottie's disaster night. We can talk about, Taylor Horton Tucker, Masai Ujiri's favorite what if coming off the bench for the Bulls to whoop the Raptors. We can talk about AJ Lawson's, late game heroics. We can talk about him putting up, I don't know, it felt like 15 points in a minute to end the game. We can talk about a lot of that. We can talk about, what a Raptors podcaster had to say tonight about Scottie Barnes and whether I agree or disagree. We'll talk about all that. And, if you have some stuff to say, call in, definitely. But this game was not particularly interesting, but it is interesting in terms of the long-term implications of what this means for the Toronto Raptors going forward, because obviously we've mentioned this before, the Raptors are pretty locked into their, very expensive starting five, which includes Scottie Barnes extension kicking in, Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl, and Emmanuel Quickley. 3 of those players played tonight. 2 of them did not. The alternate rest schedule continues and will continue going into Detroit. But that pick could be like at some point the second best asset on your team after Scottie, right? And again, if ever at some point you need to pivot off of some albatross contract, like, let's just be honest here. Brandon Ingram, hell of a player, hell of an injury history. You don't know what you got here. You don't know. Okay. This could be really great. This could be really bad. The Raptors rolled the dice with a first round pick, and I applaud their effort to do that. But the truth is that the Raptors are not a lock to be some great team next year. I think they're going to be a very good team, but they could have to pivot at some point, at which point who you draft this year is going to be a very, very big part of the equation in what you're doing as a team. And right now, as it would happen, the San Antonio Spurs, who were up really big against the Orlando Magic, just decided to plummet down the end. It's so obvious. It's so obvious, these tanking teams. It's like a 9 in 10 chance that if a team that's supposed to be tanking is up at halftime, they're going to lose that game by like 12. And that's exactly what happened with the Spurs, right? The Spurs lose tonight, which means they continue to add losses as the Raptors, who were winners of 4 straight going into Chicago, continue to add wins. And it's really hard to lose some games when the other team just doesn't show up, because the Raptors are obviously very locked in. They play very beautiful brand of basketball, and they generate some of the best shots in the league. So on a night like tonight, where 41, 44% of your threes go in, if you really lock in, you're going to win this game. And you're going to win it despite trying to lose it, because the Raptors have all these good habits defensively. They have a lot of great habits offensively. And so you're going to have to scale something back. Today, the Raptors decided to scale a couple of things back. Namely, their perimeter defense was not great today. Their pickup point was not great today. And frankly, their interior defense was abysmal. And that's really what allowed the Chicago Bulls to whoop the crap out of the Raptors. They were up by 28 at one point. They end up shooting 57% from the field, 31% from 3. They win every notable battle, from rebounds to assists to everything. But it's worth noting, on 44 field goals made, the Raptors still managed to put up 36 assists. Take a look at this. I mean, look, it's just ethical hoops, okay? Like, it's ethical hoops. The Raptors took more shots somehow. Well, it's largely because the Bulls got to the line a hell of a lot more, but also because they deserve to get to the line a hell of a lot more. They attacked more, right? The Raptors do make their free throws, which is good. But again, 35 to 49 ain't going to cut it as a rebound differential. Worth noting, the Raptors missed more shots, the Bulls had more available rebounds, et cetera, et cetera. But the Bulls win the fast break battle. They killed them in the paint. Killed them in the paint. 70 points in the paint. You surrender to the Chicago Bulls. And that's just a lot of guard penetration, Josh Giddey, transition, Nikola Vucevic. It's a lot of stuff. It's a compounding issue. But, Scottie and Yak really just did not dial in tonight. They didn't play great basketball tonight. There were some good moments. Scottie hit a three early. He had some really, really good defensive plays on Matas Buzelis. Matas, who's over under tonight was like 18 and a half. He ended up scoring 9 points. So again, Scottie continues this trend of being a pretty damn good defender who holds his matchup to really good, like below season averages or below expected volume. And on the other hand, you're going to point to a couple plays where he got cooked by Kobe White. Bro, I got news for you. I don't know if you watch the Chicago Bulls. I don't know if you know who Kobe White is. Kobe White cooking everybody. Okay, cooking everybody. He didn't just win 2-time Eastern Conference Player of the Week because he's a bum. Okay, you might think he's a bum. Leo Routens was talking about the Chicago Bulls' future in respect to Leo Routens, but he's like, they got Josh Giddey and they got this Matas Buzelis kid, ironically Lithuanian. Okay, we got the connection, but they need some other stuff. And I'm like, bro, did you just leave out the 2-time Eastern Conference Player of the Week? Kobe White been hooping. Kobe White has been a huge, huge part of what's been going on. This team just knocked out the Lakers twice. This team just completed one of the biggest comebacks in NBA history. One of the most memorable comebacks in NBA history. They're a good team. They got smacked by the OKC Thunder last night. They're not good on back-to-back nights. There was an actual chance, and I don't think it was a realistic chance, but there was an actual chance that the Bulls could come in and lay an egg, and the Raptors would be holding a W at the end of this game. And now where are you? You are 2.5 games ahead of San Antonio, and you are effectively fucked because you're not going to lose against some of these teams down the stretch. This 3.5 game little advantage that you have over the San Antonio Spurs, I will be surprised if you don't end up deadlocked with them by the end of the season, at which point it's going to be a coin toss. You're going to end up in coin toss Ross again. And what was the result of the coin toss Ross situation? The Raptors picked 8th. The Golden State Warriors picked 7th. They got Harrison Barnes, who I really wanted in that draft. The Raptors got Terrence Ross, which did not work out really well. Whatever you have to say about Terrence Ross, I didn't like him that much as a player. And this is a situation the Raptors are rolling themselves into again. So you really can't do this. Now, to the people who are here because of the thumbnail, Jacoby Walter hooping. I pointed out that he was shooting over 40% from 3 through all of March. Little did I know that Jacoby Walter was ready to shoot 100% from 3 in April, because that's what he's doing right now. He went 5 for 5 from 3, 6 for 10 from the field, 17 points, ultra efficient, just great basketball. And those assists keep going up. Yes, sir. Jacoby Walter getting a little bit more of that initiation rep and stuff. It's great. Emmanuel Quickly, decent game. 17 points, nine assists, 24 minutes. The Raptors played IQ, Scottie, and Yak 24 minutes in this game. It really wasn't much of a point to play them mega minutes in the fourth quarter anyway, because, he sucked, right? Kendrick, Scottie over Cade still? Yes, still. My God. Y'all think I would switch up on Scottie Barnes that quick? You must not know me. Okay. On the Bulls side, to get a very egalitarian approach, Josh Giddey, Kevin Huerter. I really, again, to those of you, I'll reiterate again, because I feel like I'm victory lapping at this point. When all those Raptors, Bruce Brown trades kept popping up, every time I did a mock trade with the Sacramento Kings, and it was for Bruce Brown, I always asked for Kevin Huerter back. I actually like Kevin Huerter. I think he's a pretty good player. I think he's an underrated defender. I say that with a straight face. I think he's an underrated defender, and I think he's a really smart player, and I think it's just a bad situation in Sacramento for him. And he was hooping when they were, when they initially, started the light the beam, revolution and made the playoffs. Like, he was doing great, but he just hasn't found it the last 2 years. It's nice to see him finding it right now. And yeah, they play good basketball. They're a good team. They play good basketball. Am I scared of them next year? No, I'm not. But they are a good team. They have some good players. And there was some doubt There was some doubt coming into this game. You should have seen their injury report. It was Kobe White, doubtful. Josh Giddey, game time decision. I was just like, oh my God. Kevin Huerter, maybe. I was like, oh no. Are they gonna screw the Raptors over here? Because they could have screwed the Raptors over here, right? If you want to think about it, what the Dallas Mavericks did to the Brooklyn Nets by losing that game was it pushed Brooklyn. I don't think y'all understand like how much thought is going into the tank world order across the league, but I promise you teams are really jockeying for position right now. Consider the game where Dallas lost to Brooklyn. What did that actually do? You know what that actually did? Well, it didn't do much for Dallas, but it did a lot for Brooklyn. Brooklyn being forced to win that game put an almost insurmountable distance between them and Philly for that fifth spot. So now Brooklyn's basically locked into sixth. Toronto is, holding off San Antonio for seventh, have no chance of catching Brooklyn or Philly, which is exactly what I said was going to happen. But look at what Dallas did. They prevented their conference rival OKC from getting another first round pick, because that's really what would happen. If the Sixers end up at sixth and they move back one spot, OKC gets their pick. That's the seventh pick. Now Dallas has a conference rival that they're trying to compete with next year that has this juicy asset in a loaded draft. OKC wanted that pick, but unfortunately OKC has no control over this right now. It's the lottery gods right now. But if two teams right now jump Philly, if two teams jump Philly, they will lose their pick. So they're still not out of the water completely. The Raptors moved back 2 spots last year. Philly moves back 2 spots. I think maybe we as Raptor fans might hope that we're one of those teams that jumped them, because if they move back 2 spots, we move back 2 spots, and now 7 goes to 9. This is scary shit. This is scary stuff. And I feel like you need to think about this stuff. You need to think about this stuff. And you also need to think about the fact that Darko is a good soldier. He said it in an interview. He said, I'm a good soldier. I'm going to be a good soldier for this organization. Look, as someone who comes from the exact same city as Darko, I know exactly what that means. And Scottie's a good soldier too. Okay. What Scottie has done this year as a leader for his younger teammates, I hope at the end of the season that we have those end of season interviews and somebody asks Jacoby Walter, Jamal Shed, Ulrich. I hope they ask Jamison Battle. I hope they ask all these rookies, what has he meant to you this year? What has he done for you this year? What does him actually hanging out with you do for you? What is him talking to you? What is him pushing you in practice? What is him pulling you aside and giving you these little tips and pointers? What is him doing, yelling at you in practice? What does this do for your confidence? What does this do for you? I hope people ask that question. Scottie understands one thing, which is there's no I in team. There's no I in team. We eat together. We feed together. We're going to win together. And if you want to win, you got to build up your teammates, which means you can't be tearing them down. You can't be putting them in bad positions. You think the guy who wants to pass to everybody doesn't want to help everybody? Of course he wants to help everybody. And you think he's stupid. You don't think he understands what his organization is trying to do? You don't think every person in his life is telling him, yo, y'all tanking, y'all tanking, y'all tanking. How's the tank going? I bet you anything. There's like a friend in his life who literally asks him every second day, yo, is the tank done yet? Like, these guys are not stupid. They see everything. They know what their organization is doing, but they also know internally they're trying to implement all these good habits. But at the same time, for Scottie Barnes, one of the most selfless players that I think I've ever come across in any sport, period. Okay. Most selfless people, like literally does not think about himself at all. You don't think he wants the Raptors to get a good pick? Of course he does. He and Jakob are the company men. If you think about it, if you really think about it, they are the good soldiers. They are the organizations, them, Garrett. You can throw Garrett in there when Garrett comes in. You know what I mean? Those are the guys who are meant to stabilize what's going on the floor. Because the truth is, if you left this game to AJ Lawson and Jared Roden and Orlando Robinson and Jacoby Walter, they might have snuck out a win. They might have snuck out a win. That's the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth. They stabilize what you're doing. On a night-to-night basis, Scottie, Yak, to a lesser degree, Emmanuel Quickley, but definitely Garrett Temple, what they do is they just take what's coming from the top and they put it into the team. This is what we're doing today. This is what the coaches want from us. And we're going to run this way. You notice Scottie going to his left hand a lot? Have you noticed that? He's not a left-handed player. He prefers to finish with his right hand. Why is he finishing left so often? You're wondering what's happened to his touch around the basket. He's finishing with the opposite hand a lot. Go back and study the film. So when you think about that, you're like, okay, this is a theater show. What are we doing here? Like, look, the reality and the fantasy, this is Santa Claus, okay? This is the Santa Claus thing. This is the, oh, darling, go to sleep, go write a letter to Santa Claus. We're not children here. We're adults. Most of us are adults. We understand what this organization is trying to do. We all understand what this organization is trying to do. The media understands what this organization is trying to do. The fans understand what this organization is trying to do. But apparently the players are oblivious. They're just going out and trying to win. They're trying their best. Scottie Barnes is oblivious. He's stupid. He's trying to go out and he's like, damn, I wonder what I got to do to score against this Kobe White and Josh Giddey. Come on, man. I don't care. I don't care. Toxic people have toxic things to say. I don't really fucking care. I know who I am. And I'm not that. And anybody who knows me would vouch for that. Literally anybody. So don't instigate. You know what? You coming here and bringing that shit over here actually does annoy me. Why are you bringing that here? Go over there. Go over there. Just go over there. Go bring your nonsense to where the nonsense already is. Don't bring nonsense into our chat. You understand what I'm saying? What is you bringing that up? What, are you a gossip queen? I'm just a messenger. No, you're a bitch. You're literally a bitch. If you're doing this for like, hey, what, like if you're letting me know, let me know. Email. There's an email link. When you're doing this, you clearly do care. You want to be called things on the internet that you're not? Yeah, there's an element of like, sure. Nobody wants to hear that about themselves. Nobody wants to hear that. But you bringing that here, I didn't ask you. I'm telling you that what happens on Legend of Winning's playback, or what happens on Gifted Hoops playback, or what happens on Hayes' playback is their issue. If you want to have that discussion, why don't you go over there and have that discussion? And if you want to be a good community member here and you want to be like, hey, Rob, this is what they're saying about you, why don't you do what the good community member would do and email me? Why you got to bring it up here? Because now we got to have a whole bunch of haters bringing it up here. And now we got to derail a fucking conversation for 2 minutes so I'll address it. It's cool. We addressed it on playback today. True. Okay. See, now I'm just kind of like off my point now. I'm gonna drink some fucking coffee, man. Okay. Yeah, I've been dealing with this for like an entire day and a half since that gifted thing. Apparently in 2025, if I have an issue with any person of color, apparently I have an issue with them because they're a person of color. It can't just be because I find them annoying as fuck because they eat crackers. No, it's got to be something beyond that. And you know what? This actually drives me up perfectly to my next point, which is why do we need so much drama? Let me put an emphasis on this. I'm gonna play something for y'all. I mean, again, I just want to play this. I was listening to it while I was preparing my coffee, getting ready for this live, and sometimes I just, browse around the internet. This is something that, William Lou said today about Scottie Barnes in response to this game, and I just want to respond to it. I'm going to try to be very fucking respectful. I have not been respectful in the past when addressing William Lou, right?
If you're the defender, if you're the backpedaling defender trying to stop RJ from going to the basket, you have to consider that there's a chance RJ does like.
Hang on.
At the same time, like there isn't that like decisiveness. There isn't that plan. There isn't that sharpness where you know what he's going to do. His teammates know what he's going to do. He's going to do it unless the other defense stops them. And that's going to be like the spearhead of the team. Like that never really feels that way. Now, it's not to say that Scottie hasn't had good games. Like Scottie has had, like when you think back to that Golden State Warriors game, I know they lost towards the end there, but like, you know, he had a really nice night. That one, 29 points, was certainly getting guarded by pretty good defenders and like Draymond or Jimmy Butler. And obviously the Bulls think
there was a beginning part of this. Hang on.
He had the three, which is always a good sign on off here. But like, you know, I've tried to give it more nuance, but also at the same time tonight, it's a good time to ask it because if you ask me, like, what's been the worst game of Scottie's season, I would say this one. You know, this one was really, really tough from Scottie's perspective. It actually started fine. Like I mentioned, he knocked down the three, which is always a good sign. He's been certainly struggling with the three. He knocked down a mid-range jumper, but I just didn't think that there was something on Chicago's side that should really slow down Scottie Barnes, right? Like, we're talking about a player who the Raptors have devoted the franchise to. The Raptors have put almost unfairly, but at the same time also quite generously, the entire franchise label on, right? Darko's most infamous moment with last year crashing out against the Lakers. You know, he even mentioned he had the presence of mind to slide in there. Scottie Barnes can be the face of this league. And he said it multiple times. He really reiterates that this year as well. And it's like, okay, that's fine. And it's not just because you're a face of the league doesn't mean you can't have a bad game. But I'm looking at the Chicago Bulls roster. Number one, the Bulls aren't that good defensively. Number two, who on that team should really be stopping Scottie, right? And it wasn't like the Bulls were selling out and trapping him and playing him double coverage. It's single coverage all night. And when you look at the offensive approach to the game, it just didn't quite look in that fashion. Like, it didn't look like Scottie had the ability to put pressure on Chicago's defense the way that, like, Josh Giddey was able to put pressure on the Toronto offense or defense. Kobe White was able to put pressure on the Raptors defense. You know, Nikola Vucevic was able to put pressure on the Raptors defensively and make them, force them into, like, you know, difficult decisions in terms of when to switch, when to go. They were super decisive as well with it. Tonight, Scottie looked like he really didn't have a good plan of how to attack Chicago. And I think for me, what was concerning was there's a couple opportunities of late, really, where, and I know he's been working on his left hand a lot. If you really go back and look at, like, shot by shot what he's been doing, he's been using the left hand a lot. Obviously, he's right-handed, so maybe he's just, like, practicing. You know, there's always the element. There's always an out. Like, he's just practicing. They're just tanking, so these games shouldn't count or whatever. But, like, at the same time, like, there isn't that, like, decisiveness. There isn't that plan. There isn't that sharpness where you know what he's going to do. His teammates know what he's going to do. He's going to do it unless the other defense stops them. And that's going to be, like, the spearhead of the team. Like, that never really feels that way. Now, it's not to say that Scottie hasn't had good games. Like, Scottie has had, like, when you think the context here is, you understand that Scottie can do whatever he wants, right? Like, if Scottie wanted to put up 25 shots, nobody in the organization will say a word. If anything, Darko probably would in the postgame be like, that's exactly what I want to see. I want to see you work on your shots. I want to see you be aggressive. And I don't mind any of those shots. I'm more than happy with him taking a lot of shots. You know, like he would have the blessing of everybody in the organization to go out and do that. But, like, there has just been a lot of games this year where the scoring punch, the scoring impetus just isn't there. And honestly, if you break down some of those possessions, it's like, you know, a couple of common themes come up, you know, like he'll lose his handle on some of these. There's one play tonight where he was just trying to drive against a rookie, Matas Bazelis. And whatever, Matas is.
Okay. He goes on to say that Scottie is deficient in this department. He mentioned that he's had a whole bunch of single-digit games. He then goes on to talk about how much more RJ looks comfortable in this role, and, you know, he kind of quickly, you know, brushes aside, I'm not comparing RJ and Scottie, and then proceeds to compare RJ and Scottie. Look, man, so I don't know how many of you watched the panel, but I'm going to reiterate something that I said there, and I'm going to say here, and I'm going to say it probably, this is not going to be news for literally anybody who's watched me for the last 3 years, 2 years on here. But to those of you who are new and maybe discovering this podcast, welcome. This is a fun time to be a Raptor fan. I will say this. I want you to come direct. I don't want you to sneak this. I don't want you to say one thing and mean something else. I don't like people who act like well-wishers to your face and then, say something else behind your back. I've mentioned it a million times. I don't like liars. I don't like gaslighters. I don't like manipulators. I just don't like people who can't tell me straight. Now, again, this whole PC thing, addressing this very briefly, not the remarks and the accusations, but really just what happened. To those of you who caught it, it's got 100,000 views on friggin' X and probably is going to continue to circle around the internet until I'm old and gray. But the reality of what happened was that we were on playback, and I, myself, and Jordan were the hosts of that playback stream. And a whole bunch of people came up because they just had their PCL debates. I had my PCL debate as well the next day, yesterday. To those of you who caught that, and we were keeping things very nice and respectful. There had been some drama prior to, but I was like, you know what? We're here for Minnesota versus Detroit. This is not about me. This is not time to go at Hayes for whatever he said. This is not time to go at Gifted. It's not time to go at anybody. We could just have this discussion about the game. And then at some point, apparently, because, these people subscribe to this guy's theory right here that drama sells. Hang on, where did you say that? Where the hell are you? This guy, right? What did you say? What'd you say? What'd you say? Did you say drama sells at some point? You mentioned John Morant, and then you said drama sells. I'm just a messenger. Where is it? Hang on. There we go. Drama brings views, to be honest. Apparently, a lot of content creators have figured this out, and so they like to be as dramatic as humanly possible. Now, again, this guy, Hayes, who is friends with the person that I'm having an issue with, and by the way, is a person that I'm also having an issue with, it's like, Pen, Gifted, I just want to, squash this, and you can tell me to fuck off and shut the fuck up if you don't want to talk about this, but, let's bring it up. Is it personal? Let's end this. And, kind of playing what I call fake nice. I call fake nice, where your intentions are something else, but you saying something else. Like, I can read your intentions from a million miles away. I know exactly what you're doing. I know the trap that you're kind of setting out. So I started first, and I kept it pretty respectful. I said my issues were mainly basketball. And, in the end, I let slip that I just find him a little annoying. And he goes on to, you know, say a whole bunch of stuff. And it did get me irritated because I realized that the moderator had I had almost lost my host tag because Hayes had sort of like become the moderator or the mediator in this bullshit drama. And now Hayes is kind of like, and at one point I was like, "Are you gonna cut him off?" Like, he did cut me off, so I'm like, "Are you gonna cut him off?" And then he's just like, "No, I let him speak," and then continues on, and then of course I get a little bit more heated and a little bit more heated and a little bit more heated, and it just goes, and then Hayes starts like, "Hey, let me tell you what I have an issue with." So now it's 2v1. So when did my impartial mediator, who was trying to squash the beef, now just join in and be like, "Okay, let me kick him too"? So that was just like, I was like, Hayes, nobody fucking cares. We're here to talk about playback. We're here to talk about, whatever. And then he just launched into, you duck bitch, blah, 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 blah. And then a whole bunch of people have snipped this up and selectively edited it into something that it wasn't, but the full stream is there. And again, what bothers me about every single person that I've had an issue with, and quite frankly, what bothers me about this is you're not really saying what you're thinking. You're crafting what you're saying because you're worried about what people are going to think about what you're saying. Now, of course, it does not look right for me to call you a bitch because you brought that low, bullshit here. That doesn't look right. You think I'm stupid? Like, I'm a pretty smart guy. Like, I know that doesn't look right. But in that moment, that's what I felt and that's what I said. And I'll deal with the consequences of it after. See, the truth is that most of us go through life trying to fake our entire personality. We go through life trying to craft what we're going to say, what we're going to do so that other people will like us or other people will appreciate us. I don't do that. I'll tell you why I don't do that in a very, very specific way in the hopes that maybe I might convert somebody into thinking this way. If you are not yourself, the feedback you receive for your actions is not real feedback. See what I mean? You want to ask a question, but you're like, I wonder if that would be insensitive. So you don't ask it. Now, if you know ahead of time that it's insensitive, definitely don't go ask it. But if you don't know, then how will you ever know? You know what I mean? there's obviously, like, we're not saying like go around and tell every single person, like, hey, you're ugly, you're fat. Like, we're not saying go be a bully, but I've always believed that if you don't have hate in your heart, then hate shouldn't come out of you, right? I don't have to worry about if what I'm saying sounds sexist. I'm not sexist. I don't have a sexist bone in my body. There's I mean, shit. I don't have to worry about whether my commentary on women's basketball is going to sound sexist. I'm like, oh, I wonder if I say this, will that sound sexist? These thoughts don't go through my head. So it's the same thing. So if you're gonna, and again, it's the same thing with basketball coverage. So if we're talking about basketball and you don't believe that Scotty's gonna be number one, let me tell you what I have gleaned from 3 years of listening to William Lou, and more specifically the last 2 years, and most specifically this year, because I do listen to quite a bit of what he says. It's not because I particularly enjoy his podcast. See, truth coming out. Like, I'm not pandering. I'm not playing fake nice here. My thoughts on William Lou and Hello and Welcome are very clear. I'm not a huge fan, but I do listen to the podcast. See, I'm also not being facetious by saying I don't care about the podcast. I've never listened to it. No, I'm letting you know I have listened to it. I've probably listened to one out of every two post game lives that they've done, at least 10 minutes of it. Just because sometimes, if a player has a good game, I'm curious. What do they see? What do they think? I'm curious because they are usually a really good litmus test because they, a lot of, I think they think how a lot of the media think. I'm not saying that they speak for everybody in the media, but they have a lot of views that align with a lot of the media. And I'm going to tell you something that I have picked up over the last year and a half of listening to this. They believe that Scottie is coddled. That's my belief about what they believe. But since they won't really tell you what they believe, then I guess we're all left to decipher what the words really mean. This is the fucking Fred VanVleet shit all over again. I got to fucking interpret what he means every single day because he can't just come out and say it. Because Fred VanVleet is not like Scottie Barnes. When Scottie Barnes doesn't like you, he'd just be like, I don't like you, bro. I don't like you, bro. He would tell you. Like, Scottie is like a very authentic person. Like, he's smart enough to not get himself canceled, but like, he's authentic. Like, you can tell when he doesn't like somebody, you can tell. When he does like somebody, i.e. Kayla Gray, you can tell. You can tell. You can tell when he was not cool with Fred VanVleet. You could tell. You could tell. I'll give you an example. The Nick Nurse first game against Nick Nurse, Scottie Barnes obviously, asked how was it like seeing Nick Nurse. It's like, okay, I guess it's nice to see him. I guess. Like, do you know what I mean? He'll let you know how he actually feels, and I appreciate the hell out of that about Scottie. But you know who else is like that? Nikola Jokic is like that too. You think he's not stupid. He's not going to come out and tell you that, oh yeah, winning MVP would mean so much to me. Winning MVP, no, he'd just be like, I don't care. I love people who own themselves. It is my greatest goal in life to be the type of person who can really, really speak from my heart at any time, in any place, regardless of consequence, because I know that speaking truth, speaking your truth, speaking truth is important. So what is the meaning of all of this? The meaning of all of this is I don't think Scottie's going to be a number one. That's what they really think. He said it today. Thank God he finally said it. Like, Scottie is not going to be. I don't think Scottie's going to be a 1A. He might not be a 1B. What are you really saying though? Right? He might not be a 1B. What are we saying? He's not going to be that type of go-to scorer. Okay, cool. That is an opinion held by a lot of media members. That is an opinion held by a lot of fans. It's not an opinion held by me, by the way, but that is an opinion held by a lot of people. But when you sit there, when he's taking 10 threes and you bitch that he's taking so many threes, when they win games, you bitch that, hey, it's because Scottie's chasing all NBA. They're trying to win games. But now when he doesn't take a lot of shots and they lose, you're like, he should go take 25. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, we get it, bro. You're not a fan. You listen to the words. You don't have to be a genius to figure this shit out. He's been gifted the franchise. What does that mean? It's this Fred VanVleet stuff all over again. Do you remember when Fred VanVleet said that? What did Fred VanVleet say? He said, oh God, I feel like I need to pull up the clips again of Fred VanVleet talking in code. What did Fred VanVleet say? He said, a lot of unearned opportunity. There's a lot of guys who are playing who probably in another situation wouldn't be playing. I didn't have it that way. What is he saying? You never have to interpret what Scottie's saying. He says, I like Jamal Shead. Jamal Shead's a good player. What the fuck? It's a straight answer. I like straight people. People who are just straight down the middle, tell you how they feel. You don't have to bullshit around it. But how many times have I had somebody in the media, not necessarily Toronto media, but sometimes Toronto media, reach out to me and be like, Rob, you need to be careful about how you speak about this player. You need to consider the optics of how you speak about that player. I'm like, why I gotta consider the optics? The optics are not my fucking problem. The optics are your problem. You're the optics. Without you, there are no optics. Why is it my problem? Why I gotta craft my fucking response to be code speaking like Fred VanVleet? This is the thing, man. We go through society. I swear to God, as children, we have endless questions, endless curiosity, endless self-authorship. We just want to be ourselves. A child will go up to you and be like, "You're fat." You know what I mean? And then the parent will be like, that's rude. You shouldn't do that. And that's good. But in the process of trying to weed out that stuff, do we just completely turn children into little robots where they go around just like, oh, I wonder what someone will think of me if I ask that question. I wonder if they think I'm stupid. Maybe I shouldn't ask that question. Maybe I should tell them that they have a nice tie. Yeah, that'll make them like me. If I don't like your fucking tie, I will tell you to your face that your tie is ugly. This is not just Asperger's, man. This is how I live. This is how I live. And honestly, if living this way is going to lead to me losing every single thing that I have, if I go penniless, broke, homeless, if I lose every subscriber, every fucking follower that I have, being myself, then I will be perfectly fine with it because I bet on the truth. You know what Fred VanVleet bet on himself? I bet on the truth. I will bet on the truth. Y'all didn't want to hear that Fred VanVleet, not y'all necessarily, but Toronto fans, y'all didn't want to hear that Fred VanVleet and Nick Nurse were eroding your culture. You were saying, Rob, why are you talking about this? They just won a game. Come on, can't you just be a good fan? Wasn't popular then, right? It's the same thing. I'm gonna just speak the truth. And the truth is, the shit is coded. And it's also complaining for complaining's sake. So let's pick a side here. Do you want the Raptors to win games? No? No, because you complain every time they win a game. So you don't want them to win games. You don't really want them to win games. Do you want Scottie to go out and score 35 points? Did you want Scottie to score 35 points in this game? You want Scottie to go out and dominate defensively? You want him to lock up Kobe White? You want to leave it to the chance that maybe Chicago just goes cold for a quarter and you win this game because AJ Lawson hits 2 threes? You want to leave it to doubt when there's so much on the line? No, you don't. But we all need a story. And Scottie Barnes scores 9 points in a blowout loss, regardless of context, regardless of what you actually wanted to happen, is a story. Okay, so let me ask you this, you fan who thinks William Lou was cooking. What would you have rather had tonight? Option A, Scottie scores 9 points, we lose by 20 points. 19 points? What do we lose by? We lost by 19. W math. Okay, we lost by 19 points. So what would you rather have? Scottie scores 30, we lose Scottie scores 9 and we lose by 19, or Scottie scores 30 and we win by 1. What would you rather have happened tonight? Let me know. I wish I could run a poll. I probably should run a poll. $30 and the L. That wasn't an option. 30 and a win. Sorry, if I misspoke, my apologies. What would you rather have? Scottie scores 30 and we win, or Scottie scores 9 and we lose? What would you rather have happen? A loss? Go ahead. Let me know. Write it out. I want to see all of it. Scottie scoring 30 and a win would mess up our draft. Okay, thank you, Gabe. Who else? Anybody else got 30 and a win? Oh, really? Wow. Okay, L. Yeah, you did L. A win. Loss. Okay, so some of you would want Scottie to go out there and score 30 points and win a meaningless game and delay the inevitable of us getting eliminated from the playoffs, shrinking the gap between us and San Antonio from 3.5 to 2.5. You wanted that. But let's just say the majority of you, it seems like, we're not doing a scientific poll here, wanted the Raptors to go on and lose tonight. So what are we complaining about? That Scottie didn't play well enough in this loss. So it's got to be just so, huh? It's got to be just so. Look, in a losing context. Now, again, there are certain people who've never really played hoops. There's certain players who've never really played Division One. Guess who's a player? Guess who's a person who's never played Division One basketball? Me, and probably you. Okay, and if you haven't played Division One, you really have no idea what it takes to play at the NBA level. Trust me. But I have talked to a lot of people who played at the NBA level, who played at Division One, Division Two. I have friends who are currently playing Division One basketball right now. And what I will tell you is that when you hoop on any level, really, but especially when you go higher up, you're not stopping Kobe White, bro. So like you really expose how dumb you are when you say things like that. Like, oh, Kobe White had Scottie on an island, blew past him. Yeah, that's supposed to happen. There is no 6'9" person who can regularly keep Kobe fucking White in front of him. He's a very good player. He's a very shifty, dynamic ball handler, and he's 6'3". Yeah, he's supposed to get past you. Okay. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, he's supposed to cook you. Okay. Every good defender in the NBA will tell you, I'm not going to stop Shea from scoring 35. So if Scottie's on Shea and Shea scores 35, the only thing I'm worried about is not whether Shea scored 35, is how difficult did you make it? Did you prepare before the catch? There's certain things we figure out when we actually know hoops, and then there's certain things we, say when we think we know hoops. And the truth is that a lot of people think they know hoops. A lot of people think that they understand what's happening with the Raptors. A lot of people think that they understand how good or bad Scottie Barnes is going to be. But the truth is, these same people have been wrong every step of the way. Why are you still listening to them? If you listen to them, you have Jalen Suggs right now and Haley Van Lith. Okay, that's what you would have. You'd have Jalen Suggs on the IR. If you listen to them, you have aging Kevin Durant right now. So really, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not really serious if you're giving these people credit to just be wrong over and over every single year. Now, I'll admit that this year hasn't gone as planned for Scottie in terms of an individual jump, that big jump to superstardom or whatever. But if that jump had come, we're not a lottery team. So it's like we can't have it both ways. Okay. And so the same thing is true. Look, everything that the Raptors have done this year, from their aggressive point of attack defense earlier in the season, which I told y'all, if you go and check the receipts, what have I told you this year? I told you that the Raptors were better than people thought. Have they been? Haven't they been? Be honest. With all the injuries, with all the tanking, we are still on par. We are still on pace to actually break the Vegas over under. So was I right? Yeah, we are better. Would we have been a play-in team had we been trying? 100% we would have been. 100%. Forget the injuries. Had we just wanted to make the play-in, we would have made it. Thank God we didn't want to make it. But now I'm suddenly supposed to be worried about the Bulls next year, because that's what William Lou said on a podcast. He's like, how are you going to compete with the Bulls next year? Bro, I ain't worried about the Bulls. I'm worried about the Cavs. I'm worried about the Celtics. There's such a bigger. Let me try to phrase this nicely, because again, sometimes I have to catch myself, because I'll just go way too deep, way too fast, and then I'll say something, and maybe I'll be like, yeah, I'm trying to be unfiltered, but damn, I went too far there. There are big picture thinkers in life, and then there are small picture thinkers in life, right? There are. Do you know what a big picture thinker is? Let me give you an example. Someone comes up to me and says, Rob, I want to learn how to be a director, like a film director. And I say, okay, great. And I take them to a fire station and we sit there for 8 hours. So a big picture thinker understands that there is actually a connection between the fire station and learning how to run a film set. There are parallels. There are things you can learn. The small picture thinker is like, why am I wasting my time here? Why am I not on film set? There's different layers and levels to thinking about anything, thinking fast and slow. There's a lot of books that talk about this. But the truth is, most people don't understand what's happening. It's happening right in front of them. They just can't see it because they don't really have access to think about it. And it's very frustrating to have a conversation when one person does think a little bit deeper and one person doesn't. When Darko Rajakovic, a quote that has been either, depending on which side of the aisle you fall on, if you're like very pro Darko, pro Scottie, you're like, yeah, I'm so happy that Darko is like, talking about him being the face of the league. This is exactly the type of coach that you want, for your star player. But if you're on the other side, you're like, this guy's on crack. This guy is on crack. This guy thinks he's going to be the face of the league. He's not even the face of his team. This guy is capping, and so that's the thing, right? They always make light of Darko and Scottie. They're like, oh, Darko is this, he's just what did he say? He's like, he's the most unapologetic fan of Scottie. These are quotes. He's Scottie's biggest fan. Why wouldn't a coach be a fan of his player? You don't think Phil Jackson was a fan of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant? The only thing that bothers you about this is that you're not a fan of Scottie. That's the truth. Let me give you like this is like a BetterHelp session for all Scottie haters. That's your issue here. They handed him a max contract. They handed him the franchise tag. You think he didn't earn it because you don't like him. You don't think he's going to be that level of talent. You don't think he's that good. You can't really see the value in what he's providing. You don't really think it's all that impressive. You see the loose handle. I see the loose handle. You see, sometimes the point of attack defense stuff. You see, sometimes you see the shaky shot. You see the 26% from the three. You're like, what the fuck are we doing here? Masai Ujiri, he's a dummy. Bobby Webster, Darko Rajakovic, these people devoted their whole life to basketball. They're stupid. I'm not necessarily appealing to authority in making my argument. I fully agree that Scottie is a player that is 100% worth building around. And trust me, there's like 2 players in this entire league that I think are more worth building around right now. We can talk about that some other day. But if you don't like him, nothing is ever going to add up about this. Darko is going to seem like he's on crack. I'm going to seem like I'm on crack. Masai is going to seem like he's being overzealous. Everyone is going to seem stupid. But then one day, it's not going to seem so stupid anymore. I was on a Raptor space less than 4 months ago, and someone was saying, I can't believe we got Jacoby Walter instead of Tristan da Silva. Tristan da Silva is so good. Do you see how many threes he hit last night? Tristan da Silva is way better than the Raptors. Tristan da Silva would be way better on the Raptors. And I think this is marginally like because Tristan da Silva had just literally finished like the night before or the day before cooking the Raptors and did a really good job against the Raptors. Well, how do you feel now? Because Jacoby's cooking now. Jacoby's been in and out of the lineup. He's had multiple injuries this year. He had a lot of weight to put on. But again, if you understand hoops, the minute you saw this guy get on an NBA court, you're like, oh, that's special. But if you don't understand hoops, you're like, Tristan da Silva scores more threes. Tristan da Silva is better. Thinking fast and slow. Some of you are dumb. That's just the truth. You want me to sugarcoat it for you? You want me to say some of you are not as intellectually gifted as other people? No, it's not a fucking conspiracy. When you devote your entire life to studying a game, you're going to pick up shit. Darko Rajakovic has spent 35 years of his life obsessed with this game. 35 years. Obsessed. Really obsessed. Coaching at the highest levels in Europe. Studying under the masters. He's met Phil Jackson. He got a job as a foreign head coach with no experience. And he had his extension picked up the other day, which is so irregular, by the way. Last summer, for them to pick up his extension as a big vote of confidence, you have one of the smartest general manager president duos that vouch for this guy. And you got an entire city, and half these people think this guy couldn't drop fucking play in high school. What does that tell you? What does that tell you about our collective IQ as fans? Jacoby Walter is balling. Now, right now, I'll point out something, and this is not me being snippy about Samson, but Samson brought up today on X, he brought up Jonathan Mobo's finishing, right? Jonathan Mobo has had some issues finishing around the rim this year, granted on very small sample size, but let's just briefly talk about J-Mo because I want to put it into a different context. Again, thinking fast and slow. We're thinking, immediacy, and we're also thinking process. We're thinking about this in a different level. I want to show you something that might surprise you. These are Jonathan Mobo's numbers next to Pascal Siakam. Is it fair to compare these players? Sure. Yeah. In terms of basketball experience, Jonathan Mobo has more basketball experience, but he is also a complete late bloomer. He's playing in a worse situation. He's playing with much worse teammates, much worse defenders, much worse offensive players. He's playing with worse spacing. He has a more complicated role. He's not just a rim runner and, playing with Kyle fucking Lowry. He's playing with Emmanuel Quickley and Davion Mitchell for a lot of these minutes, okay? He's playing with rookie Jamal Shed. He's not playing with Fred VanVleet, and he's not, you know what I mean? So, look, my point is, Pascal had the much easier role, okay? And despite that, look at how the numbers actually stack out. More points, more rebounds, more assists, more steals, more polished decision maker, better three-point shooter, better free throw shooter, bigger, more complex role offensively, playing with worse teammates. He has the only thing that you could say about Pascal Siakam is he blocked more shots and he scored a little bit better around the rim. That's it. That's it. That's all you can say. And he's a little bit bigger. But JMO is a fantastic athlete. Fantastic athlete. We've seen it. You got this guy at 31. You got Pascal Siakam at 27. Pascal Siakam might be one of the biggest draft steals in Raptors history. He might be the biggest draft steal in Raptors history. I dare you to think of someone better. This is the rookie that you're down on. I think the Raptors cooked in last year's draft. I've been very excited about this draft class. Early in the season, I started talking about all these rookies on the panel a lot. People get really bugged out and annoyed, but I actually have let these rookies know that one of my goals this year was to make sure that every single person that I can talk to in the basketball world, whether that be on the panel, I want everybody to talk or know about who Jamal Shed, Ulrich Shamshi, Jonathan Mobo, Jamison Battle, and Jacoby Walter. I want everybody to know these guys' names. This was one of my biggest goals coming into the season. I literally wrote it down and I put it on my wall behind, where I podcast. And that was one of my biggest things. I was like, every single time you can shine light on what these guys are doing, what these 5 young players are doing. Because again, I believe in the self-looking glass. I 100% do. And you better believe that every single time that, I find a positive thing to say about Ulrich, I tag him in it. And I know he sees it. Every single time I find something positive about Jamal Shed, some number that shows what a great track record he's on, I give him that little boost. Just a fan covering the team, man. But I want to tag him in only positive content. It's the same thing with JMO. This graphic right here, I don't think Jonathan Mobo knew that. I don't think Jonathan Mobo knew that he was having a better rookie season than Pascal Siakam. He knows now, though. He does know now. So it's these small things. But overall, I'm probably all over the point here, man. My God, like my brain is on deep fry right now. I'm on like left, right, center. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just hitting all the buttons and praying to God that I get to finish him, But what I'm saying is I don't care about these games in terms of results. I don't care about these games in terms of anything other than what does it mean for next year? That's it. That's my whole goal. Right? Let me get some super chats real quick. Noble Venom. Ironically, both super chats literally pertain to the same thing, and I guess we can talk about it. Noble Venom saying, "What do you think has happened to Scottie's touch around the rim? Seems to have noticeably declined." Agreed. And ESPN needs IKD saying the reality of this quote unquote rebuild is it still hinges on Scottie Barnes taking that next step to reach those heights. The counting stats aren't the issue; it's the inefficiency. Need that 57 true shooting percentage to 60 true shooting percentage. Okay, so at no level, whether that be, college, whether that be first year, second year, third year, fourth year, has Scottie been hyper efficient. The closest he's ever been to like what you would consider efficient would probably be in his first year, but his role was so uncomplicated. Now, again, this is a very, very anecdotal thing, but do you know that Jason Tatum is shooting 31% from 3 this month, last month, January? January, he shot 31% from 3. Jason Tatum is more efficient, yes. Jason Tatum plays in a much better context and a much better system, and Jason Tatum is a better shooter. But I'm saying we don't get too bogged down on Jason Tatum shooting 31%, do we? Luka Doncic just had stretches. Jokic just had stretches. There's a lot of people have had stretches. I agree with you, your overall point, specifically this one, that he does need to get more efficient. I don't know how much more efficient he's going to get. I don't know if he's going to get to 61, 62, 63% true shooting. That would be great. That'd be wonderful. But I can tell you this. If you simplify his role enough to the point where efficiency becomes the goal, we can very easily get to 60% true shooting. So really at this point, it's a seesaw between complexity and efficiency. And we consistently have to seesaw between these two variables, right? If what you want me to do is be perfect, then what you're going to have to do is give me easier tasks. Loading an offense where I am the center of the floor and I'm working with not optimal spacing, and I have a big in the way all the time in Jakob Poeltl, who, granted does a good job getting out of the way sometimes, but is still not a stretch big. If you're going to create that situation for me, what you're doing is you're loading me up for a task that one of maybe 10, 12 scorers in this league can actually handle. You're also having me do this while I'm anchoring your defense on the other end. This is a hard task. Think of another player who can do this for you, and I guarantee you not come up with 4 names. It's not easy. Go guard 4 or 5 positions on defense. Elevate almost single handedly elevate your team. I mean, you realize where Scottie sits in terms of defensive EPM? I will show you. There is a relation between offense and defense. There has to be. Like we cannot be this obtuse where we think that the load that you have on offense does not impact your defense. Go look at his actual efficiency prior to the Pascal Siakam trade and the OG Anunoby trade. He was hovering close to 60% true shooting. I think it was at 59, 60, 61, around there. It does come down to 3-point shooting. We've seen, moments where it's been really decent. The 3-point shot has come and go. The free throw shooting he's had moments where he's been closer to 85%, 83%, 82%. It's just like these ebbs and flows. Here. Nope, not that. This. That's the list. Alex Caruso, Asar Thompson, Chris Dunn, Victor Wembanyama, Amen Thompson, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, Dyson Daniels, Paul Reed, Ivica Zubac, Jonathan Isaac, Scottie Barnes. That is 1 through 12, and Scottie is tied with the 2 players ahead of him, which is Zubac and Jonathan Isaac, literally 2 of the best defenders in the league, and probably guys who would qualify under normal circumstances for all NBA first team defense. Those are the guys that he's compared to defensively. This entire defensive, rise for the Raptors is not just about poor schedule. See, again, when you got to realize something, and I feel like Mars and Ox kind of brought up a good point on the panel today. After 82 games, strength of schedule doesn't matter. You all played roughly the same 82 games. You know what I mean? Like everybody had somewhat the same strength of schedule. Okay, maybe the worst team in the league had a slightly harder strength of schedule because they don't get to face themselves. And the best team in the league had a slightly easier strength of schedule because they didn't have to face themselves. But the average teams, like teams 10 through 20, pretty much have an identical strength of schedule. So if at the end of a season, which we're pretty much approaching, Scottie Barnes is ranking out as one of the top 12 defenders in the league, then his defensive contributions are not a matter of debate. He is a great defender, right? He's a great defender. Anyways, the point was about his offense, and I'm rambling on about his defense. I do think these things are related, and I do think that with BI, I don't know if it's going to be 57% ESPN is AKD. It could be 55, 57. It could be there, but I will remind you, ESPN is AKD, that Pascal Siakam was about 60 to 61% true shooting when he was a second, third option with Kawhi, and he immediately went down to 55 when he wasn't. 54. I'd be perfectly comfortable with Scottie being an all-league type of defender, a great passer, one of the best passers in the league, a fantastic rebounder, and a 23-point per game scorer on 55% true shooting. I would love it. 57 to 60 is truly for the elites. And yeah. So again, the load, you don't see stars carrying this level of load on defense. Jason Tatum's a good defender. He does not carry this load on defense. Shai's a great defender. He does not carry this load on defense. There is not another number 1 option in this league who is having to do this defensively. And if you can find one, please write them out right now. Who out there, name me one 20-plus point per game scorer who is the team's number 1 option franchise player who is doing the hardest thing on defense every single night. Lou Dorts get paid, OGs get paid, so your stars don't have to work. These are your workhorses. You're having your star player be your workhorse. He's doing a hell of a job too. So he's your quarterback. No, Giannis is definitely not doing the hardest job on defense. He's doing the best job on defense, but he's not doing the hardest job on defense. Also, best defender, not the hardest working defender on that team. Wemby is not carrying the load of that defense. I mean, you could say he is like the greatest anchor in the league right now, but consider the load what we're talking about. Wemby is a hang back big in very often situations. He's not like chasing. Do you know what I mean? Like he's not doing the steps. Like when I think of workhorses defensively, I think of Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, Scottie Barnes. I think of Cason Wallace. I think of Drew Holiday to some extent. Well, maybe previously Drew Holiday, Marcus Smart, guys like that. The only person that you could even come close to saying is like on that level is probably someone like Bam or someone like Jaren Jackson, like something like that. Like they're doing a lot of work to me, right? So I don't know. Again, AD is a fantastic defender. Don't get me wrong. This is it. It's Kawhi. Kawhi, Michael, Scottie. That's it. That's your archetype. Jimmy's a good example. Yeah, Jimmy too. LeBron as well. LeBron. Like you're really talking about very, very rare. Now, be honest with yourself. Is Scottie as good as LeBron, Kawhi, those guys? No, he's not. So he's going to struggle. And look, next year, I don't want him to take on such a huge load defensively. Maybe we get to a point where he gets to coast a little bit on defense for the first 3 quarters. Not coast, like not be effective. He's always going to be effective. But you consider how much work Ron Harper and Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman was a bull. You know what's funny? So some of y'all know from previous episodes that I have been currently binge watching The Last Dance. You will be happy to know that I finally finished it. And to those of you who are like, Rob, what kind of an idiot are you? You never watched The Last Dance? No, I didn't watch The Last Dance during the pandemic because I'd heard that it was somewhat slanderous and unflattering to Scottie Pippen. And since Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan, I was like, oh, this is gonna be Michael Jordan being petty, and I'm gonna lose respect for him. And I didn't want to tarnish my childhood hero. I love Michael Jordan very, very much. So I didn't want to lose respect for my hero. I certainly didn't want to lose any, respect for one of my favorite players, which is Scottie Pippen. So I just decided to stay away from it. I'm like, fuck it. Everybody likes it. There's probably a reason that I'm not going to like it. I was wrong. I loved it. And, towards the end of it, I started thinking, it's funny. I see a lot of Dennis Rodman and Scottie Barnes, but I also see a lot of Scottie Pippen and Scottie Barnes, and I also see a lot of MJ and Scottie Barnes. Now, you'll probably agree with the Dennis Rodman part, although Scottie's never going to be, averaging 24 rebounds per 100 possessions like beast Dennis Rodman did in 95, 96. And maybe he'll never be as fluid and as explosive, or at least as aesthetically as explosive as a Scottie Pippen, and maybe never be like quite the event disruptor that Scottie Pippen is. I think the closest thing to Scottie Pippen defensively today is Herb Jones, maybe a really dialed in Herb Jones, or maybe Dyson Daniels, something like that. Maybe Scottie won't be that. And the Michael Jordan stuff, you're just like, I don't think, like, what the hell are you talking about? There's nothing like Michael Jordan. But the coolest thing about Michael, and it's again, we all make notes, we all see different things when we're watching a documentary. One of the coolest things that I observed in that documentary was there's this part where they were talking about how Michael Jordan is just always in the moment. And they gave a lot of examples, and they're kind of just showing him kind of like before the game, he's just kind of grooving on his headphones. And they talked about the psychology of it, and I thought it was fascinating. They said most people say, you know, I'm afraid to miss the shot. And Michael said, why would I be afraid to miss a shot that I haven't missed yet? Why would I be afraid to miss a shot that I haven't taken yet? The mentality is that the vast majority of people lose in life because they're not there in life. You're presented with opportunities every single day, but you're too busy thinking about what might happen, what could happen, or what used to happen, what didn't happen. You see a girl at a club, and or fuck the club because I'm 35. Let's just pretend I'm 37. So let's just pretend I go to bookstores and shit now, right? So let's say you see a girl at a bookstore, and she seems nice, and she's holding your favorite book. And I mean, this is a perfect opportunity to just go and say, hey, that's my favorite book. What's the worst that could possibly happen to you, right? What is the worst that could happen to you in that moment? She says, cool, you're weird, and then walks away. What's the best thing that could happen? You could strike up a conversation with someone that you find attractive, who happens to like your favorite book that you met at a bookstore and not a sleazy club, and you might actually meet the mother of your children. I really don't know. My point here is that most of us in that moment kind of lock up and we think to ourselves, well, what could happen? What might happen? And then we think back to the worst thing that ever happened to us, and then we kind of make it happen in real life. Michael Jordan had no such problems. He was just unapologetically himself. He was crafted, he was political for sure. He said a lot of things. He thought very much about his image and his brand, and he protected it. But from what I gathered from it, he was just very authentically himself. And he was always just there in the moment. He wasn't thinking about yesterday. He wasn't thinking about tomorrow. He didn't care about the shots and the missed shots. He didn't care if he was goofy, whatever. Scottie Barnes has been dealing with tism accusations for the last 2 years because he ran a little goofy once, where I was watching some of those Michael Jordan plays where he's like, hollering at his teammates and he's joking around with his teammates and he's just being goofy and childlike. And you know what I was thinking? If Michael Jordan wasn't such a great player and Michael Jordan came up around social media, people would be saying he had tism too. People would be saying, "What's wrong with this guy? Why does he have his tongue out like that? Why does he walk like that? Why does he chew gum like that? Why does he kind of flop around like that? Why does he yell at why is he whistling at his teammates like that? Why is he moving his head like that? Like he's so goofy." But you know what's funny? Michael Jordan is like the epitome of what it means to retain your childhood, Like that pure version of you when you were a kid. That goofy, carefree, that kid that just died. And most of us that just died. We started thinking about the failure, we started thinking about the rejections, we started thinking about the past and the future, and then we just stopped being present. Children are so freaking present. Have you noticed that? It isn't until we become adults that we become so preoccupied with not being present. And then some of us, we say, I don't know where the time went. I don't know where the time went. I don't know where, 30 turned to 40, turned to 50, turned to dead. I don't know where that happened. A lot of people just have that one problem. Scottie does not have that problem though. Scottie always present. That's the coolest thing about him. When he's there with you, he's just there with you. When he's in the gym, he's in the gym. When he's with his teammates, he's with his teammates. He's goofy, he's funny, he's connected, he's locked in. He's just there. You know what I mean? Yeah, check his phone. He's a normal 23-year-old human being, but for the most part, he's not constantly like, "Oh, what will they do? What will they think?" and stuff like that. And I think that's maybe the most beautiful thing about him. And I think that's kind of what makes him Jordan like in that way, that he has this like very large presence to him, right? Now, the profound one, you're gonna have to turn on your camera very briefly in the background before I let you on because we've had a lot of trolls, and certainly in light of everything that's happening around Twitter right now. Uh, show face. I just see a black screen, man. Yep, can't see your face. Sorry. Nice try though, but I can't see your face. Man, the trolls are relentless. Let me be real with you. The profound one. There's nobody in the world who would ever have good intentions calling themselves a profound one, and then when I say turn their camera on, they wave to a blurry camera, and like you might think I'm really stupid. I think that might be it. You think I'm really dumb. I'm not dumb. Okay? So, yes, either do that or get out. Cool. I will give you 5 seconds to turn your camera on again or you're getting booted. 3 5. Yeah, you're gone. See, we weed out trolls so well. We need better filters on here, man. Oh, God. 1 hour and 8 minutes. Have we really talked about Jameson Battle today? Not really. Have we really talked about Jacoby Walters today? No, not really. I think Jacoby's gonna be fantastic, man. I really do. I think his whole thing as he's gone on this season is confidence, reps, and strength. This is all we need here. He's already processing the game at a much better level than he was at any point in Baylor. I'll tell you, I went back and I really, really watched his high school tape from Link, and I could see elements of playmaking there. And when I was talking to a trainer, I was like, should we be looking at point guard reps for Jacoby here? Like Jacoby could, I think, like personally, again, as somebody who is not like in Jacoby's camp or connected to Jacoby or connected to the Raptors, really, I would believe that the best future for Jacoby is as a combo guard. And clearly, the Raptors have a glut of wings. They have a lot of guys who can play two, a lot of guys who can play three, a lot of guys who can play four, and they have fewer guys who can play one. And I would just like to think that there would be an option to put Jacoby at the one. Jacoby at the one, maybe RJ at the two, Scottie at the three, BI at the four, or invert Scottie and BI or something like that, where you could just run four long perimeter players and just wreak havoc like that, or maybe not RJ, maybe it's Grady,
right? And then you could just have a lot of shooting around Scottie. Like imagine that, right? When Emmanuel quickly goes to the bench, you got Jacoby Walter coming in as a backup guard. I'm not trying to throw Jamal Shed out to the he's not chopped liver here, but I'm just saying having another option in terms of how you can use your lineup. In yesterday's debate with Carson, was it Carson Logan? Sorry, my bad. With Logan, I brought up the OKC Thunder's depth, and he brought up the Memphis Grizzlies depth. And my whole argument, which I think was a great argument, which was how many different positions, look at how many different positions these players that are on OKC's bench can actually play. That's the reason why you're able to survive Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren getting injured, because you have a wing in Jalen Williams who can not only start at guard, but he can actually start at center for you and actually hold water. You beat Ivica Zubac and the LA Clippers with Jalen Williams at center because your guards were scrambling down so hard, and because Jalen Williams does a competent enough job at protecting the rim. Again, it's not like we've never seen bigs who were 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". People always freak out when it happens. Charles Barkley was 6'4". I got news for you. Ben Wallace was like 6'7"-ish, 6'7.5". Okay, there have been some undersized bigs. Draymond 6'5.5", 6'6". He's not huge. I've seen it next to Scottie. Scottie's bigger than him. So when Scottie starts to center, is that a big deal? You know what I mean? You want that type of lineup versatility because you never know what the night is going to call. And in the playoffs, it really does come down to scheme and matchups. And sometimes you throw a curveball. Jacoby at point, boom. You're not prepared for that. Now you got a lot of length. You got a 6'5", 6'5", good athlete, good point of attack defender. So again, it came down to could he do that stuff? And if nothing else, even if you're developing him as a more well-rounded two, it's still good for his reps. So I'm really glad that his shot is really coming around. I mean, shoot, that right corner automatic, left corner automatic, and now he's coming and he's hitting it from the top as well. I think this summer is going to be so important for him. I'll tell you right now, among all the players on this team, and I'm high on a lot of them. Y'all know I'm very high on Ulrich. I'm very high on Jonathan Mobile. I'm very high on Scotty. I think the two biggest jumps next year that you will see will be from Jacoby and Ulrich in terms of where they are today to where they will be next year. I think these two have shown just an insane, relentless drive and doggedness to get better. They're very scrappy. They're very hardworking. I hear a lot of stuff about them from people that cover them more closely than I do. And you just hear like they're so respectful. They're always locked in. They're like the first person, asking for help in a drill, or they're really paying attention. I think every player, pretty much every single player on this team is going to be marginally, if not significantly better next year. I mean, that includes RJ and IQ and Scotty, but also BI. I think BI could be significantly better next year. But these two specifically, I think could take that kind of, whoa, I didn't know they had that kind of jump. And it could push somebody. It could really push somebody because at some point, you gotta force your coach's hand, man. They got 6 wings, 5 wings. You gotta force them to trade somebody. That's how Fred VanVleet thought of it, right? When Fred VanVleet came and signed an undrafted deal with the Raptors, and he heard, well, you got 3 point guards, and he said, well, it's cool. We could trade one of them. And I thought he was an asshole when he said that because I really liked Delon Wright. But that's kind of the mentality you got to have if you're Jacoby Walter. Is like, yeah, there's a glut of players at your position. There might be another one coming in this year. But for your perspective, you just got to beat them out and force them to trade somebody else because they're not going to trade you. And if at some point you tell me that Jacoby is a starting guard for this team and that's who you roll with into the future, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I really do think he has a chance to be one of the best players of his draft class. Like, I know he doesn't get a lot of love in that regard. Like, I think a lot of people talk about Matas Buzelis. A lot of people talk about Jared McCain. A lot of people talk about Stephon Castle. A lot of people talk about Zach Edey, Dalton Connect. They talk about, Kalal Ware. There's a lot of players. Alex Sarr, Zachary Ricochet. There's a lot of good young players in this draft class. I really do think that Jacoby could be one of the 8 or 9 best players in this draft class. I really do. Could he be more than that? I have no idea. But I think he could be in that conversation. Right now, nobody puts him in that conversation, right? And I think he can be. Like, I've been very impressed with the playmaking, I'm very impressed with the defense all year, the doggedness, the shooting now. It's just been really solid for me, at least. I've loved it. And overall, I think Jonathan Mobile, I was looking back at him 2 years ago, just a personal curiosity last night, couldn't sleep, had a weird day, rough day, and I was just looking back on it, and I was just like, okay, I would like to really look at where this guy's coming from. 2 years ago, what was his game like? I think there's been a staggering progression from Jonathan Mobo. I do think that the mask is bothering him, to be honest. I think, when you put on a mask like that, it really, bothers your depth perception. Wasn't a great shooter to begin with. That's only going to hurt it more. Wasn't the greatest finisher to begin with. That's only going to hurt it more. I've noticed it in his passing. I mean, even when Scottie put on the mask, the first thing he said was depth perception's off. So yeah, like when you're shooting at the basket, and a lot of these moves are new for these guys, the Euro steps, the drags, the hang dribbles, these are new moves for these guys. It's not natural. They haven't been doing it 5,000 million times like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So all these new moves, you're still aiming the ball at the rim. And if your depth perception is off, like you're kind of blind. You know what I mean? Like you're basically playing blind with that mask. It will make you a better player overall. Obviously, you become more instinctual basketball player. You learn not to, you have to learn to trust your hands, trust your bodies a little bit better. But at this point, I'm just like, is the mask such a hindrance? Like, are they just doing it on purpose at this point? They're just putting the mask on his face to make him worse? Or is it really protecting something? Because him and Jamison Battle have been wearing that mask. And, we're told it's because of an injury, a facial injury or whatever. But it's just like, I get it. But at the same time, that's a great way to tank too, isn't it? Because you could easily be wearing goggles, right? No, you can't be wearing goggles because they're trying to protect the. I think it's with Jonathan Mobo, it was the nasal, right? Anyways, yeah. Long story short, the Raptors have been eliminated from the playoffs. I am authentically myself, and I don't really care what's happening on Lowe's playback. That's the long story short of this game. The Raptors next up is the Detroit Pistons. Am I correct in assuming that? The Detroit basketball. Been very impressed with the Detroit Pistons this year. I like to say that once a day, just so that people who, my apologies. Thursday, the Portland Trailblazers. Shoot. Okay, so they got Portland next. Portland is playing ethical hoops, so that is another potential, not likely, but a potential loss for Toronto is Portland. Portland beat Atlanta today, so they're obviously still willing to win. You are happening on Lowe's playback. What does that mean? I'm happening? Okay. Brandon Ingram wants to get high. Pale Fox, I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're a longtime community member. I'm gonna make it very clear. Brandon Ingram, to my best knowledge, has looked the way you think he's high or whatever. He's looked that way since he was like 5 years old. Okay. So what is Playback? What is this drama y'all speaking on? Playback is an app that you can download on your phone. And if you want to go and engage with drama llamas, just go check out Legend of Winning on Playback. There's a chat. There's a dude who talks to a camera, much like myself, but different and very different. And yeah, that's what it is. It's the Raptors Moments video. Yeah, I don't really care. Like, I mean, I shout outs to Raptors Moments, and he makes funny stuff, but and I mean, like, weed is legalized, but I just think that he just wants to get high. Is that there's a connotation of laziness to that, and I just want to get ahead of that, with the Toronto media and how weird they fucking are sometimes. I just don't want Brandon Ingram to get hurt next year and then be like, oh, I guess he just took his drugs too serious or something like that. I don't know. These people are wild as hell. They say crazy shit, so I really don't know what are they gonna do. Rob, what are your realistic draft, trade, free agent targets to shore up our defense? So I don't know about free agent targets because I don't think the Raptors are going to have a lot of move to maneuver in terms of free agents. Once you sign your 7th/8th overall pick, like you're pretty much up against the luxury tax. We can do an entire breakdown ahead of the offseason. There's plenty of months left, man. I am looking forward to April 5th. So that is 3 days from now. And that will be Duke versus Houston. Okay, Final Four time. We are there. Duke, Houston. That's going to be really cool. Let me know in the comments after who y'all got between Duke, Houston, and Florida, Auburn. I'm really taking a liking to Jahmai Broome. I know some people are really low on him because he's a little bit slow-footed and he runs a little bit funny, and maybe you don't think his game will translate. But I just have a feeling that someone who's as physical as him, who has good hands, like he could be good. I don't know. I'm not saying like lottery pick or mid first rounder, but late first rounder, early second, like hella productive basketball player. If you look at his college career, he's one of the most productive college players you've ever seen. For 5 years, holy shit, he's done it. He really has. Jack saying Duke versus Florida final. Why are you so sure that Auburn gets packed up by Florida? That's what I want to know. What are you seeing in that situation? You had an issue with these folks on playback or something? No, I love playback. Playback's cool. Playback's a great thing. I'm gonna actually be on playback on Friday. Oh wow, what you just rolled me right into a frigging great plug. Okay, y'all, have you ever wanted to watch a game with yours truly? Have you ever just wanted to comment live while we all watch the game and you're watching the game and you're seeing me talking about the game? I don't know, like pointing out stuff, having debates, talking about certain things during the game. If you have ever wanted to have that happen, this Friday, I will be on playback. If I'm not mistaken, let me just make sure. Yeah, this Friday, I will be on playback with somebody. I don't know who yet, and we are going to be breaking down the Toronto Raptors versus the Detroit Pistons live. Okay. It will not be Pinsire basketball on playback. It will be via player's choice. So I will be doing it via player's choice. I don't have my own room on playback. So yeah. So go check out Player's Choice on Playback. Shout outs to Playback TV. It is very simple to download. You download it on your phone and you just have the conversation. You can come up on stage. We can have a conversation there. Be respectful, whatever. Might pull some people up on stage and stuff like that. You can comment, you can super chat. It's kind of like this, except we're literally watching the game together. And instead of listening to Jack Armstrong, you listen to me. So could be cool. Could be cool. Detroit, is always a heat, right? Detroit facing all the suspensions right now. I really hope that some of their players come back and that they're in fighting spirits against the Raptors. I mean, Scottie Barnes, just go for it, man. Knock someone out, get suspended the final 5 games, and just call it a day. The final 5 games of this season are 6 games are Portland, Detroit, Brooklyn, Charlotte, Dallas, San Antonio. Dallas might be doing a hell of a tank job, man. But San Antonio on the last day is really like shaping up to be this could be the game of the year. And the reason I say that is because again, when you look at their schedule, you look at what they're doing, and it's obvious to me what they're doing. They're trying to lose games right now. If you see what's happening, there's a really good chance that the Raptors and San Antonio Spurs come into that game with identical records. And one of these teams is going home with the 8th pick, and the other team is going home with the 7th pick. And it's going to be basically like a game of chicken, where it's like, who are you going to play and who are we going to play? And it's like, how embarrassing is this going to be? Because literally one game, winner takes all. The winner of that game is literally going home with the worst pick. Like, do you know what I mean? And it's happening in San Antonio. I think that's worth noting, right? It's happening in San Antonio. So I would like to avoid that situation personally by losing every one of these remaining games. So Portland is a must lose. I'm not saying do lose. I'm saying must lose. Detroit must lose. If you win either one of these games, kiss your pick goodbye. 100%. Nets, try to lose. Charlotte, try to lose. Dallas, try to lose. Lose one of those games, you keep your pick at 7, which is where it belongs. Okay. I feel good about 7. The last time we had 7, we moved up to 4. I feel good there. If you move down to 8 right now, I'm gonna be really mad. Like, I'm gonna be really mad. Development be damned. Like, I'm gonna be really pissed because it's meaningless. It's meaningless to lose fractions of a percentage. And does it surprise anybody that the 2 teams that have been the best at tanking are run by Daryl Morey and Danny Ainge? Does that surprise anybody? Not Chicago Bulls. The Philadelphia 76ers and the Utah Jazz have unabashedly tanked their way to the absolute bottom of these standings, and it's ridiculous. And I will tell you that because the Charlotte Hornets actually won, because the Washington Wizards actually won. Is it the Charlotte Hornets or the Wizards? So Charlotte's pretty much locked in at 3. Washington and Utah, I don't really know who owns the tiebreaker between these 2 teams if they finish with identical records, but it's just worth noting that at some point we have Charlotte. Wait a second. Is Charlotte locked in? No, Charlotte is not locked in. So Charlotte has so much to lose if they lose to us. You know what I mean? Like they have a 2-game advantage over New Orleans, right? So if Charlotte loses to us, that's not like the end of the world, but they can only lose one more game comfortably, right? Man, all these teams, shit. This is the worst. This is the most brutal schedule to come down the stretch, and I knew it was going to be this way. I had a feeling. I had a feeling, and I was just hoping that the Raptors would start earlier, and they didn't. So, anyway, bench lost him for the final game. Yo, I gotta agree, man. AJ lost him going crazy, 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 crazy. He is trying so hard to save his NBA career, and Orlando Robinson is kind of hit or miss. Cole Swider, it might be one of those like, hey, I don't know if I'm ever going to play another NBA game. Look, the one thing I'll say, and it's something I wanted to bring up, and this probably this will be the last point that I bring up today, which is the game within the game, right? In order to stay locked in an 82 game season, athletes need to prepare their mental, which means that every single game you need to have a game within the game, which means I'm going to get to the line 12 times. This is going to be my game within the game. Or I'm going to get 14 rebounds today. That's my game within the game. Or I'm going to get at least 5 shots up per quarter. That's going to be my game within the game. Or I'm going to hold my opponent to below 25% shooting. That's going to be my game within the game. These things need to happen. Like that's your edge, right? That's what you got to do. That's how you get an edge in competitive sports. That's how you've got to do it. Otherwise, these games just float together, and yeah, like you're gonna coast through a few games. And for players like Kobe and players like Michael and players like LeBron, there's always a game within the game, and then there's a game outside the game, and the game outside the game is legacy. And for what I would say for Scottie is like, look, man, yeah, it's not a big deal. It's Charlotte, it's Chicago, it's Philly, it's these games, but it's someday if it matters to you that you are a Hall of Famer, if it matters to you that when one day we stack your career up to the other greats in the NBA, that you have one more All NBA, these things will matter at some point. I know Scottie is just implicitly wired to not give a shit about the selfish and the self-centered stuff. But at some point, I hope he's never selfish, and I know he'll never be selfish, but I hope he can be a little bit more selfish. I hope he can care a little bit more about, you know, being consistent as a scorer. I do hope he can care about all that stuff. But honestly, I'm not going to hold like the 76th or 75th game of the season in a season where, the Raptors are out of contention and the Raptors are not in the playoffs or the play-in, and losing is mandated and his teammates are young and they need all these opportunities. And Scotty's probably just like, yo, let me just get Jacoby some shots. Let me get some, and that's normal. But next year, it's not going to be let me get Jacoby some shots. It's going to be big dog got to eat, and Scotty's got to take that page from Shea and Kobe and basically any player that he probably looks up to, right? Whether that be Shea, whether that be Kobe, whether that be KD, whether that be LeBron, like they all knew that they had to be alpha. So he's got to do that. The Raptors need to get even more creative. Their scrubs are too good. They need to start Orlando Robinson at point guard and Jamal Shed at center, and they need to shoot with their offhands. I mean, they're already doing that with Scottie, right? Doing left hand. I would love for the last game if everybody just shot jumpers with their opposite hand. That would be a brilliant move. And then afterwards, just call it development. Be like, Kobe did it. Kobe had to learn how to shoot with his left hand. We thought this was a monumental step forward in our development. Shit, I'm not kidding. Like, I would sign up for a 10-day to play with the Raptors and just like completely. I would come in and be the only player in NBA history to average 26 turnovers a game, because I would get 26 turnovers for that for that final spot. Anyways, I've been looking at this draft a lot, and I gotta say, get comfortable saying Con Knipple, guys, because I have a feeling that Kaman is gonna go higher than 7. I have a feeling Derek Queen is gonna go higher than 7, and I just. And I'm not trying to, set a sour note. Obviously, the lottery will be the lottery. We can't control it. The final 6 games are what we can control. But I really am comfortable, getting more comfortable with spots 7, 8, 9, 10 in this draft in terms of the players that are available. If Kaman and Derek Queen are off the board, yeah, it'll suck. But I think you're still going to get a really good dynamic player who can develop in your system. It'll probably be a perimeter player though. So that's kind of where I'm stuck on it, where it's like the best player available argument at 8, the best player available is probably going to be a wing. If Kaman and Derek Queen are off the board, it's definitely going to be a wing. You already have a glut of wings. Now what are we doing? The Raptors have never shied away from taking the best player available and dealing with the consequences later. But the truth is, you just don't have a lot of roster space to sign those other players, right? You do need a backup big. Like if you look at most good teams, they have 2, 3 really good bigs. You have one, and he can't shoot. So it's like, Kaman would be huge, Queen would be huge, but if not those two guys, like you're going perimeter, you're going Kon Knipple or Kasparas Yakushonis, and it's just the Raptors have been in this situation so many times, right? Where they have the right player and then the right player goes to pick after, i.e. Rafael Rougeau. And, just this area of the draft is very traumatic for me. 8 is a very, very bad number for the Raptors. I'll tell you that right now, because the Raptors have had the 8th pick, I believe, twice in Raptors history, if I'm not mistaken. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. And they've picked busts both times. Terrence Ross was bust-ish, for a high lottery pick. He didn't really work out. And Rafael Rougeau is the bust of busts. So I would like to avoid 8th. I don't know if the Raptors have ever had 7th. Have the Raptors ever drafted 7th? I know the Raptors once had the 5th pick. They traded Jonathan Bender. I know they had was Damon Stoudemire the 6th pick or the 7th pick in the draft? I don't remember. Marcus Camby was the 2nd pick. Scottie Barnes was the 4th pick. Chris Bosh was the 4th pick. OG was the 23rd pick. Siakam was the 27th pick. What's the Raptors' best pick at? Well, 9 has been very kind to the Raptors. Not that I would suggest that trading back or anything, but if we did fall, the last 2 times that I remember, okay, got you. I thought that the last 2 times that we picked 9th was DeMar DeRozan and Tracy McGrady. So 9 has been great to the Raptors. Jakob was definitely not a 7th pick. I can guarantee you that. Charlie Villanueva was, though. You're right. Charlie B was the 7th pick. We went kind of off the board when we picked him. I remember thinking that they were going to probably go with Danny Granger there, and then Danny Granger fell all the way to 17. And then we picked Joey Graham 16. And I was actually pretty high on Joey Graham, and then had a conversation with Jack Armstrong way back then, 2006, 2007, trying to give away my age, and was trying to sell him on how good Joey Graham was going to be. Ooh, there we go. Yak was 9th. So it's T-Mac, DeMar DeRozan, and Jakob Poeltl have been 9th picks for the Raptors. Jonas Valanciunas was a 5th pick for the Raptors. Okay. Andrea Bargnani was the number 1 pick for the Raptors. Kind of interesting. The Raptors had the number 1 pick. They went with a white guy. If they had the number 1 pick this year, they're going to go with a white guy. Maybe the Raptors are racist. Who knows? Okay. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a good one. That was a joke. That was meant in jest. Please don't cancel me. Bye-bye.